marks Asian Pacific American Heritage Month. Yeah, which celebrates the histories of Americans hailing from across the Asian continent. And Cynthia Choi, a co-executive director for Chinese for Affirmative Action and co-founder of Stop AAPI Hate, says the month is a time to speak out, share stories, debunk myths about Asian communities. But it's also time to celebrate Asian culture and diversity. She told NPR News, this is a celebration of our history, of our culture, and all the different ways in which our community has really demonstrated that we're not only here to stay, we are part of the fabric as part of this country. Now, the legislation to annually designate May as Asian Pacific American Heritage Month references two dates, May 7th and May 10th. May 7th, 1843, that marks the arrival of the first Japanese immigrants to the United States. And May 10th, 1869, or they call it Golden Spike Day, recognizes the completion of the first transcontinental railroad in the United States, which had significant contributions from Chinese workers. Yeah, the Chinese workers were mostly the workers who built the railroads that connected the East Coast of the United States of America to the West Coast.
Wow.
And actually, that it was connecting the railroads that allowed travel between East Coast through the Midwest all the way to the West Coast that actually made the United States what it is.
Wow.
It was done by Chinese immigrants. And they were actually experts. The hardest part of building the railroad was getting through the Sierra Nevada mountain range, because they had to blast. They had to blast through the mountain. The railroad doesn't go over the mountain. You know, it's not like one of those, she'll be coming over the mountain when she comes. They went right through the mountain, and the Chinese immigrants were apparently, according to the history books, I wasn't there, but according to the history books, they were experts at blasting through the mountains, and that's why they were brought to the United States. And I'm going to tell you a quick immigration story about all of this. What were you going to ask, Jonathan?
No, I was going to say that kind of makes sense with them and the railroads, because when I went back to Ethiopia in 2019, there were so many Chinese people there, and I was asking everybody, like, wait, why are there so many Chinese people there? And it's like a lot of them coming, and they're building like all the railroads and stuff out there too.
They're very knowledgeable about that, even going back 150 years ago. Now,
so it's still the same too.
Now, there were over, I think, I don't know how many Chinese worked on the railroads, but tens of thousands of Chinese were brought to the United States and worked on the railroads. At that time, this is the time right after the American Civil War. There was no immigration laws. If you made it to America, you're here. There was no immigration custom enforcement. There was no immigration nationality service, which turned into USCIS. There was nothing. You showed up. You're here. Guess what? You're in America.
Yeah.
Okay. But the number of Chinese that came to build the railroads, there was a huge backlash by Americans. It was the first immigration backlash.
Why is it? Because they were taking jobs?
Well, because no, they look different than
white people.
So in May 6th, 1862, was the first immigration laws ever passed.
Wow.
So I learned this in law school.
Wow.
The Chinese Exclusion Act, and it barred all Chinese people, the entire nationality of Chinese people, from entering the United States. They were banned.
Wow.
No, you couldn't come no matter what if you were Chinese. And that was between 1882 all the way to 1943.
Wow.
Yeah, so they were banned for almost 60 years.
That's a long time.
Yeah. Now, do you know, it was up until recent time, it was the only law or rule or regulation ever passed in the history of the United States that banned an entire nation and culture. Up until when?
Oh, Trump?
Trump. Pumpkin.
Oh, man.
Pumpkin was the second president. Chester A. Arthur, I think it was Chester A. Arthur was the president who signed the Chinese Exclusion Act. And the United States, in 150 years of immigration law, never banned another nation or a nationality until Trump, with all those proclamations.
So I'm thinking he literally did all this just to be in the history books. Like...
Yeah, according to your notes, the railroad stretched from West Coast to East Coast. 15 to 20,000 Chinese immigrants were a major part of its construction. in there. So that's kind of why they celebrate in the month of May.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for watching. For more Brad Show Live, like and subscribe to our YouTube channel.